Welcome to Raz-Lee Education. Today we will talk about using MFA for secure sign-on on IBM I. My name is Moshe Sofer. I'm the market manager. And this webinar is planned to have half-hour duration. So it's a really quick webinar. We will be doing 6 of these webinars in the month of September. And we will start right now for what is MFA. There is an important advice that one simple action you can take to prevent 99.9% of attacks on your accounts. This was said by Melanie Maines, a senior product marketing manager at Microsoft Security. This was an interview, and that interview was about how useful it is to have multi-factor authentication to protect the integrity of your accounts. But we are talking about IBM I specifically. So what are the risks? We have mainly two major risks. One is called social engineering, and the other is called password brute force attack. Both of them are used several times to enter our systems and make possible an attack. But social engineering is quite a new concept, and password brute force attack is as old as passwords. So these both risks represent the new threat that is social engineering, and we will explain it in the following minutes, and password brute force attack that right now is not just a brute force attack. They have many times of password brute force attacks. So we need to be clear that multi-factor authentication is the way to be protected against these two risks. So we will start with social engineering. Social engineering is a way to psychologically manipulate a person, and this person must be usually a key person on the company that has access to the server. If there is a person, an ex-person that doesn't have access to the server, it's not logical and it's not practical to spend months doing social engineering to get his passwords or his credentials. So this context, it's relatively new. It was widespread during the pandemic years, and now it's still on the top of the strategies to get credentials, because all our information is on social networks. So we'll start with a simple example. When you have a system, you usually have the option of I have forgotten my password, or the forgot password function. When this is not safe and you just ask 3 questions, or you ask 1 question, and after that question, you can get access to put a new password. Or when you ask that I forgot my password, so they send the password to an email, and you can pass that email to anyone and tell them, okay, just use this password for today, I will change it tomorrow. That is not the best way to do it. And many systems has that weak point. So when they use the password reset and get your password, they will let you without access to the account. But social engineering goes further. How far they go? Well, they start with 4 steps, and we will explain those steps. The first step is investigation. They will identify a victim, gather background information that is available for everyone. just enter the social media, just enter the LinkedIn and then follow the people in Facebook, follow his Instagram, see his Twitter, and you have many other accounts to get information. And then you will get an attack method. For example, I get the victim and I know has a good position. He's a sales manager, so probably he has access to the server or to a folder in the server. And I need to attack that. So I will make a job offer and I will send it to his LinkedIn. And will be such a pretty good offer that is perfect for him, because I have seen in his tweets that he's complaining about the job, he's complaining about the hours. So I will just try to make a bite. Then there is the hook. Once I have posted the information from another account, I will send him the link. And if he engages, then I will start the storytelling. How the storytelling goes? Well, okay, perfect. I will give him an interview over the phone, probably call him, get some other information as his background, how many kids he has, if he has or not a car, what kind of hobbies he likes, what kind of sports, what has been doing. So I have control of the interaction. Later on, there is a play. So now that I have my foot on it, I will ask him, okay, so show me what you have done. Can you share your screen and show me what you have done? And then obviously he will share and I will see the user, but not the password. So I have the user, I have the place how to enter, I have an IP address to enter, and I know how to enter and send the attack. So in this case, I have two options. I can use a brute force attack later and get the password in that way, or I can send him an email or put on an FTP a file that he will download and he will upload later, and that file will be in the server for some time, and somebody will activate the trap. And probably it could be a virus, and that virus could call a ransomware, and that ransomware will destroy that company. And then, obviously, I'm sorry, I will remove the trace of malware. So I don't need to remove the trace of malware because I will be making ransom, covering my tracks. All the profiles I was using were fakes, so I just have to delete them. And sorry, I just don't answer the phone, don't answer the Skype, don't answer anything. Just end the interaction. Or I can send one last email that, sorry, but we choose another person. And this key person that I got the information that helped me to get to the server didn't know that I was making an attack to his company. So that's what is making social engineering so dangerous, because they take the time to make a plan that could last for months or several weeks just to get one point to enter to the system and make the attack. So they have enough patience, they have investigation skills to get the information before, get the information after, and they have social interaction. And this is why it's so dangerous. So there are some prevention tips. Normally, you don't open emails with attachments that are suspicious. In this case, they send you the attachment after they meet you, so probably you will download the attachment. But in the case you don't know the sender, you really don't need to answer. And second, if a tempting offer goes around, usually you can Google the topic, Google about the company, see the LinkedIn profile, or do the same social engineering they do to you, you can do it to them. So you will know if it's a real offer or a trap. And the third way is not policy. Both tips that I said before are policies. The third way is just use a multi-factor authentication in your company login, because they want credentials, and with this, they will not have the full credentials ever. Now we will speak about password brute force attack. As long as passwords exist, the brute force attack exists. The difference between then and now is how fast they can crack your password. Because this is a systematically guess of the login info. The attacker submits combination of username and passwords. If they have your username, they only have to worry about password. So it will be easier and it will be faster. How fast it can be? Well, the simple brute force attack, that is the traditional attack of this kind, works really fast. You can guess up to 350 billions of passwords per second. So you have to be sure that you have a password strong enough to not be break in a couple of seconds. Usually, and we will talk about later, we use common passwords. So if they get your password for one system, probably they get your password for many systems, because as human beings, we usually work with the same password over and over and over. So the typical brute force attack will make 100 of guesses every second, thousands of guesses every second. And you can make it with more speed, just adding more machines to the cluster. There is a second kind of attack that when they have your password, but they don't have the user. So they have to guess the user. And it's the same technique, the same time. And this is quite interesting because there is a dictionary brute force attack. And this implied the use of a dictionary, as the name says. So they use the words and numbers from the dictionary. So the dictionary use passwords that have been leaked earlier. And these leaked passwords can be bad on the dark side of the web, and even they can be found for free. So when they have access to multiple dictionaries, they just make a stack, and this dictionary attack will try the passwords and users that are on the dictionary against your system. This usually works better than the two first options because they already have a combination. And that combination, as I said before, is usually the same for many systems. So probably they have a combination for your Google account, and that's the same combination of your Facebook account and your Instagram account. So why not is the same combination for your mail account in the job or your FTP account to access the server? And there is an hybrid brute force attack. This hybrid shape, it's combination of the normal attack and the dictionary attack. So they will try to get a combination based on your dictionary leaked passwords and another passwords. But typically, they use what people usually use. People often stack a series of numbers, and they are typically 4 onto the end of their password. So those numbers are usually a year, the year you were born, the year you have your graduation, the year you have your degree, the year your children born. So the first number is 1 or 2. So they have the first number, then they have to get in the dictionary what is the first part of the password, and then they just have to try several times and in order numbers. And then there is credential stuffing attack. There are more than 8.5 billion of usernames and passwords that have been leaked. Okay, this number is absolutely enormous. And these stolen credentials are sold in the base like dictionaries, as I told before, or like credential lists. So when you want to take these credential lists, you can buy them, and then you use them on several systems and websites, because probably one or more of them will give you access. When they have access, they stop using this attack and they start doing the real attack. So a credential stuffing attack uses the stolen login combinations across a multitude of sites. Okay? It works because I have been saying it 3 or 4 times before. People use the same username and password combination over and over again. And that is why it's so useful for them to build this kind of list. So how do you prevent a brute force attack or a credential stuffing attack? First, you have to disable all unused accounts. Okay? They have no actual users. These accounts are really just using space on your hard drive. And it's a way to keep the system clear. So the second point is limit the login attempts. When you limit the login attempts, solves the problem to a great extent and really solves a big part of the problem, because if they are doing dictionary attack or library attack or simple brute force attack, they need many tries. So if you have the login attempts, like 3 login attempts, and then block the IP address, they are out. But if they are using credential stuffing, probably the credential will be the same. Another way is in point 3, to use strong and unique passwords. Okay, it's recommended everywhere that we use capital letters, lower letters, numbers, symbols to make them more secure and take longer to break. This doesn't mean the password is unbreakable. This usually means the password will be forgotten. As many of you know, when you have to put a capital letter and then you have to add numbers, usually those numbers are here, and usually the capital letter will go at the beginning. And when you have to put a symbol, okay, I will put an exclamation symbol at the end, and that will do the trick, and I will have access to the system. But the attacker is thinking the same. Okay, it's easy. I have first capital and then numbers that are here, and then I have just all the symbols that are in my numeric keyword, because it's what people usually do. So they will break the password somehow. And another way, the same case of social engineering, is to use a multi-factor authentication tool. Okay, why? Because if you have the user and password you don't have the additional credential that multi-factor authentication will give you. And this will prevent the attack. So the advice at the end is to get protected. And I will explain what is MFA or multi-factor authentication. First, we have at least two factors of authentication. Besides the user and password, that is one factor, we need, as we see in the picture, something that we know, or something that we have, or something that we are. Okay, something that we know is a one-time password, a TOTP, or an emergency token. We will know it. Something that we have, it's an ID card, it's a QR code, it's a pen drive, that it's a key dispositive that make an authentication, so it's a physical authentication device, or something that we are, that can be the face recognition, can be eyes recognition, can be fingerprints, but it's something inherent to my person. My ID card is something inherent to my persona. And the code, the TOTP, is something inherent to me because I get it through my phone. In summary, I need a user password combination that is the IBM standard, and usually I go for the TOTP. Why the TOTP? Because the TOTP is a time-based one-time password. Every time you enter Google, Facebook, Gmail, your Microsoft account, or another website like PayPal, or another website that you have to make transactions, you put your user, you put your password, and then you get the first time you got a QR code, and this QR code opens you to a 6-digit code. And this 6-digit code changes every 30 seconds. In some systems, you have special cases, and you can get emergency codes because you don't have your phone. Or you can request a one-time password again because you don't have your phone. So this is going to your email. And then you have to start the process. But in any case, even if it's a special case, they will be with something that you know. So still being another credential that is outside the user and password. We will talk about the iSecurity multi-factor authentication, or called MFA. And it's a really simple solution. And this solution protects and secures the sign-on. It's based on 3 principles: to make it single step, to be based on the person, and to be based on the IP group. And why these 3 steps? Well, first, because you can integrate the MFA token, that it's the 6-digit token given to you by the Authenticator app, with your user and password in the sign-on screen. So this means a single step. When you enter your Facebook account, from a computer that is not your usual computer. You first enter user and password, and then he asks you for the Google Authenticator or Dual Authentication number or Microsoft Authentication, whatever you're using. But this is in one step, not multiple steps. So I have two factors, user and password, and then I have the MFA token in the login. And then the system admin can see how many people using MFA control sessions are already on the systems, and he can do all the reports that he needs based on this. The next two concepts goes together, and it's persons and locations. We're talking specifically about IP groups, but for educational purposes and to explain it better, it's really easier to understand it as locations. For example, the first person, John, has a work that he moves from different offices around the world, New York, Atlanta, Tel Aviv. And he also does some work from home. In this case, we can say that MFA is required inside what? Inside this IP group, these locations. But if you try to enter the system from another IP that is not on the list, he will be rejected automatically. In the second case, we have Natalie, and Natalie has New York office and Atlanta office. Even she has 3 user profiles, but we don't care about user profiles because we are seeing the person. So we see Natalie, New York and Atlanta is not required to make an MFA. But if she works from outside those locations, we will ask for an MFA. And then there is the third option or third combination. We have Matthew that has 2 places to work, Tel Aviv and home, and it's not required an MFA because he enters to a secure virtual network. So really, he doesn't need it. But if he tries to enter from another location, we will reject him. Who decides this? Your system administrator based on the needs of the company. So you are free to play with these IP groups and allow the connection without MFA, allow the connection with MFA, or reject the connection. And you can make this separately in each profile. So it's very useful when you have different kind of workers, associates, partners, different kind of persons that are entering the IDMI for different purposes from different locations. And even you can say in which times or which weekdays these rules apply. The Authenticator apps and hardware are really, really simple because you can choose any of them. You can choose a hardware token provider, or you can use a PC desktop authentication method, or you can use an app for authenticator method. Any of them works with RFC 6238. Any of them gives you a TOTP. So you can choose any of them. You don't need to make a special software in your server besides the MFA, and you don't need to put a Linux server to solve the problem. It's native. to the IBM. So you don't have to make major changes to your network. And that is very good because the less changes you make to implement, the easier and smoother the implementation goes. So how many times I have to authenticate? Okay, one. One authentication is enough for a single person, including all their user profiles, coming from the same IP range during a pre-specified time. For example, I will make an authentication and all my user profiles will be authenticated. I'm right now in Tel Aviv, so me and all my profiles in Tel Aviv are authenticated for 8 hours. So when I try tomorrow to enter, I will need to authenticate again. Now we can see the two ways to work with MFA from iSecurity. You have the green screen with all the options, the settings for person, the person information, the hypergroups, and the control sessions, your definitions, your setup, the system configuration, and the display and history. And also you have a graphic user interface where you can work from a Windows PC directly on your IBM and make all the configurations there without even enter the green screen. And there is something really important in the background picture that not only we protect and secure the sign-on, we also protect and secure the FTP server, the ODBC, the file server, the DDM, and the RAIX. So it's not just the sign-on screen. As a summary, iSecurity MFA works in an organizational approach. We think about the companies and we consider the person because a person can have multiple user profiles on multiple systems. We consider the origin IP address of the sign-on that are the locations we were talking before. And one authentication is good enough. And this is really important. We don't want to bother a person authenticating every hour, every 2 hours, every 3 hours, or if he changed from one user profile to user profile and he's in the same machine, so doesn't really need to make an authentication because it's from the same IP range, from the same user, and it's inside the same time window. So also we control the sign-on in one step because it's part of the standard sign-on screen. And we have control over another components that are several exit points that most solutions don't control or don't took in consideration. And we took it in consideration as the FTP server and client, the ODBC, the file server, the remote command, and the DDM DRDA. So this solution is the only solution that you need, and you have to install it. One, it works with multiple helpers, it works with multiple systems, and is working with multiple profiles. So you need just to install one solution, and with that one solution, you have secured your sign-on, and you are using multiple factor authentication inside an MBMI. So I invite you to make some questions, but I will read them. In the chat. So if you have questions, I will gladly answer them. This webinar will be published on our YouTube channel. So if someone is saying this from a YouTube channel right now, they should just put the question in the comment section, and then in the comment section, an expert from support of Raz-Lee will answer those questions. So first question is if I can work with MFA without having an internet connection directly plugged in the IBM server. And the answer is yes, you can. You can use MFA even if you doesn't have an internet connection directly to your server, because your server will be working in an internet, and that internet will be synchronized with the international clock anyway. So you will be able to work with MFA. And second question is how to decide who has permission, who is rejected, or who needs authentication. Well, if you are in a zero trust policy, everyone needs to do an MFA, and they can only enter from allowed locations. So that's the best answer and the best approach. In other cases, it depends totally on the policies of the company, and we will gladly help you to recommend what to do in every case during the initial implementation. I thank you very much for being there and listening to this webinar to the end. For further information, you can go to razlee.com and you can find all our material about MFA. We have so many articles and we have a very good description of what can we do. So hope you have enjoyed this webinar, and I will see you on the next webinars.